Hey, Michael.
Scott, good to see you, sir.
It's always good seeing you, and you're always sitting there working with your, what do you call the thing on your
A loop.
A loop. Okay,
Yeah.
the same thing you'd use for a diamond.
Yeah, staying busy, yes, sir.
Working on the Rolexes.
Yep, putting one together right now.
Wow, that's amazing. And you cover it all up, huh?
Yeah, we like to keep it clean, keep the dust off of it.
That makes sense.
While we're working on it. So whenever I step away from the bench, I always keep it covered.
And how many Rolexes do you work on a day?
We're probably servicing about 2 a day, doing full overhauls. Yep.
Okay, all right. Well, let's sit down and talk about Rolexes.
All right, sounds good.
Hey everybody, Scott Grant. I'm here at Underwood Jewelers with one of the leading experts on Rolexes in our area, Michael Dudley. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, good to be here, yes, sir.
So what is it about Rolexes, man? What is it that makes them so popular?
Well, I think people love the quality and the timelessness of them. You know, the fact that you can have it for the rest of your life. I mean, how many items do we have that go through us, go with us for our entire life?
And not just your life, right? Your kid's life. Some case.
Yeah.
I mean, who gets the Rolex? Mm-hmm. The eldest son, right?
Right. Yeah.
So if you got multiple sons, you need multiple Rolexes.
That's right. Absolutely.
So everybody gets one. And I was telling you, I have one. I don't have it with me today, but I have one that once belonged to my grandfather. Mm-hmm. So yeah, multi-generational.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we often have them come in that are 50 plus years old and still ticking, and they're here to get serviced again.
Well, I didn't want to do this but too quickly, but this one I think is 60 plus years old. That was once my dad's and is now mine. So, and I'm probably going to leave this with you to service.
Okay.
Because it hasn't been serviced in a while. We'll talk about those later. But there's a great demand for Rolexes these days. Everybody wants one. I was talking to a lawyer that I share office space with, and he apparently has been on a waiting list. So they're hard to get. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. Unfortunately, we've had some people. It depends on the model, but some people wait 6 months longer for the watch they desire. It's just everyone wants one these days. So.
And there are people who are hoarding them. Is that fair?
Well, I'd say we got collectors in the industry, which we've had for a long time. Collectors have always been a big part of watchmaking in general, and so maybe we have more collectors today, perhaps.
Okay.
But I think there's always been people who've interested in having more than one piece. Honestly, a lot of my customers have more than one piece.
Yeah, you got a bunch of watches back here.
Yeah, this is just a little of what I've been working on the past 2 weeks.
I feel like I'm in a candy store right now.
Sure, yeah.
Just looking at the watches. I want one of each, basically.
Right. So these have been refinished, and they're getting ready to be reassembled with new gaskets and all new parts. And once we reassemble the cases, we'll water test them and pressure test them to make sure that no moisture is getting in.
And they are waterproof, and they are pressure proof.
Yeah, they call them waterproof. They go some of them up to 300 meters underwater. And a few actually go even deeper than that. They have the sea dweller and stuff.
Well, and it's funny. We talked about that article that is coming out in the Recorder next month that I write about Rolexes, and Edmund Hillary and Norgay Tenzing take a Rolex to the top of Mount Everest.
Yeah.
Probably the first people to take, probably not the last, I would imagine. Is there a pressure issue at altitude as well?
So we test them as if they're going into outer space, and we test them as if they're going into underwater as well. So we test them to both extremes.
Well, that's pretty interesting.
Yes, right here in the shop. Everyone gets tested.
So let's go back to the collectors, the demand. There's flippers out there as well, right?
There are flippers, yes, yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that? I mean, you hooked me up with a website, and I've been seeing these ads from people trying to sell these things.
Well, I think there's speculators out there, just like in any market. And we have house flippers, we have people who flip sneakers these days, people who flip art. People who buy and sell, posters, limited edition posters. So I think you have these speculators. They're becoming quite savvy because of the internet, I think, and they're figuring out every product that you can buy for less than they're worth. And so So Rolex tends to be one of those items.
And what you're saying is, if I go into a store these days and buy a Rolex and pay full price, that I'm buying it for less than it's worth. I kind of like that image.
Yeah, that's been the trend here lately. And it's not with 100% of the watches, but there's a good portion of the watches, as soon as you walk out the door, they're worth more money than you just paid for it.
And John Rutkowski, who's the manager here, was telling me that you guys don't want to be selling watches to flippers. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a goal of Rolex and Underwood's that we want the watch to go to someone who's going to wear it and enjoy it. You know, flippers typically are not loyal to the brand. They're not loyal to Underwood's, and they don't even wear the watches. They put them in a safe and they sell them. Some sell them immediately. Some wait 6 months. But yeah, Underwood's and Rolex wants them to go on the people's wrist and be enjoyed and worn. That's the intent.
Well, there's a lot of speculation going on out there, as you pointed out, and you can see this in a variety of areas. Houses, you mentioned. I would argue cryptocurrencies, another area of just rampant speculation. But the good thing is, if you buy a Rolex, I mean, it's got value. I tend to think cryptocurrencies don't, but other people may differ. And the shoes, I didn't even think about the shoes till you said it. But yeah,
the sneaker market has been wild.
Yeah, crazy.
Full of speculators, though, I would argue.
It could be. I mean, I walked into a store to buy some things for my son's shoes that would keep them from creasing.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, the creasing. And the kid selling it to me said his sneakers were $1,000 sneakers, and that those weren't even that expensive.
Wow.
But we're not here to talk about sneakers. We're here to talk about the king. Talk a little bit about repairs. How long does a repair typically take?
Well, we'd like to be able to get them out to our customers in 3 to 4 weeks from the time of drop-off would be our goal. The reason it takes that long is, there's a week of timing analysis that takes place after the watch has been completed. Timing analysis, just to make sure it's running? That's right. So we do a quick timing on this machine right here behind me. But then, that just takes a snapshot, if you will. We want to create a video of the accuracy of the watch over a period of time, which is a week in this case. So you actually time it for a week to see if it's we monitor the timekeeping of it. So every watch is going to drift in time by a few seconds a day. They'll either lose a few seconds or gain a few seconds. So we want to see how that performs over the course of a week. And that will give us a better idea that it's going to perform as expected over the course of the next 2 to 10 years. We have a 2-year warranty. We give every watch that comes out of this shop a 2-year international warranty. So if you're in France and your watch breaks, you can take it to an authorized dealer in France with that warranty card, and they will get it repaired for you, no charge, assuming that you haven't damaged it yourself, that sort of thing. Yeah, no, the thing that I always remember was I had one as a kid I used to crack. It was my grandfather's originally, and he gave it to me when I was 12. He used to crack the crystal. Oh, sure, yeah. Yeah, and then my mother would get mad at me, really, really bad, because I cracked another crystal. Apparently, they weren't cheap. Yeah, unfortunately, that's still a thing. It still happens. Does it? Yeah. I haven't cracked a crystal in a long time, since I was a teenager, but I did when I was a little kid. I probably shouldn't have been running around 8th grade, 7th and 8th grade with that watch. But I liked it. Yeah, that was quite a watch for 8th grade. Yeah, it was. So the back to the speculation, you see the people are not happy about this, right? The people in the watch community don't like these flippers. Is that fair? Well, it's, as I see it, it's like a new community of people who have moved in. There's been that solid core group of people who are watch enthusiasts for decades, Sure, me. Guilty. And me, I love watches. That's why I'm here. But, those people have been there even when we weren't in this crazy environment. And now, because of this environment, more people have moved in. So, yes, the old people are disappointed because there was a time when you could go into a Rolex dealer and buy pretty much any watch that you wanted. If it wasn't on display, you could order it right up and be there in a few weeks. That's just not the case anymore. And you said something interesting. You said you love them. Oh, yeah. And that's why you're working on them? Yeah. Yes.
Is this something that you do because, I mean, obviously you do this for money, you get paid, and I see it says watchmaker on your jacket. That's a cool title.
Yes, it is a cool title. Yeah, I'm passionate about it. I used to sell watches in the Caribbean, and I stopped selling them because I fell in love with the mechanical movement and the engineering behind them, and I wanted to learn how to take them apart. So I went to a local watchmaker there on the island, asked him if he would teach me. He said no. He said, if you really want to learn, you need to go to school. So I looked into schools, and Rolex has an excellent program up in Pennsylvania. And so I applied up there, and the rest is history, as they say.
That's great. So you went to watch school in
I went to watchmaking
specifically
school.
Rolex, right?
It's a school that's sponsored by Rolex, I guess is the way they would describe it.
Wow.
It's called the Lidditz Watch Technicum, and it's in the Amish country up there in Pennsylvania, outside of Lancaster.
Wow.
And it's this beautiful farm building that they built. It's beautiful, and on the first floor is a watchmaking school. They have about 12 to 16 students a year that they take on. It's a 2-year program, and you go there every day just like a job.
Wow. And could you actually make a watch?
I'd say today the term watchmaker is a bit of a misnomer. I repair watches. I'm a watchmaker by trade. I have certifications that say I'm a watchmaker, but I don't make watches. I have made parts for watches.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but to make the full watch would be quite the task, and it would take quite the amount of time as well.
So we were talking beforehand, and I was talking a little bit about, when I did mention Hillary and Tenzing, the one of the stories that fascinated me, I was working on an article for the Recorder, and I talk about Rolexes. In fact, the article is about Rolexes. I think I called it the Iconography of Rolexes. And I talk about Chuck Yeager. Mm. And Chuck was wearing an Oyster in 1947 when he climbs into the Bell X1 to break the sound barrier. And I mean, he could have been wearing any watch that he wanted, but he's wearing a Rolex. And this is one of those iconic events. Is breaking the sound. First guy to break the sound barrier. He was a World War II ace in the Pacific. Shot down 12 Japanese planes. And I imagine he was wearing the Rolex when he did that too. I should have researched that. Is that part of the iconic nature of the watch? Is that they've been around and famous people wore them, or is it the quality, or is it both? I guess.
Yeah, I'd say it's a little of all of that. I mean, you have people in expedition fields, explorers. They chose that piece because they chose the Rolex because they were waterproof. One of the only watches 100 years ago that had a waterproof case. That's where the word oyster comes from.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. So oysters, keep the water out. So Hans Wilsdorf, the founder of Rolex, named it the oyster case because it kept water out.
Oh, that's pretty interesting. Yeah. And so it was popular with divers then, obviously, at least.
Right. So all sorts of explorers would use it. People who were sailors and navigators needed it because of the time accuracy of it. Same with navigators over land. They would use compasses and the time to help navigate them over land. And so, accurate timepiece was crucial to your exploration.
Well, that's interesting. I imagine people around here still dive. And I imagine absolutely I sail, other people sail. But I just wear them, to go to work.
Sure.
I guess, on some level, I kind of feel like I am carrying that history of exploration and manliness with me on my wrist. And I am wearing 2 today. My grandfather always wore 2. Nice. It was funny. He wore them, and I think he had one set for Philadelphia time and one to London time. So that's probably, I think it's when he starts doing it. But you feel like you're carrying on that. We all can't climb Everest, although I know a couple local guys who have. We can't all dive on this French fleet that they just discovered, but you feel like you're kind of part. At least I do feel like I'm kind of part of it.
Sure, there's certainly some nostalgia there for sure. But even just living through your daily life, you're exploring this world in your own way, you know, and to have a piece that you don't have to take off. You can wear it pretty much doing whatever you want to do. I have customers, all sorts of professions, that they wear them all day, every day, and they come in pretty beat up, and you know, we fix them and we make them like new again, and they go back out on their wrists and do it all over again.
Well, I pretty much wear this one every day, all day, every day. This other one I just started wearing again, and somehow or other I'm starting to like this one. I don't know why. It's grown on me. It sat there. For a while I had one of those things that rocked it to keep it.
Oh, watch winder.
Yeah, whatever those are called. But I think it just sat there for a while. So, do you have any watches you want to show me? Anything here that we can look at?
No, I'm wearing a Yachtmaster 2 today. I'm a big sailor as well. I sail out there on the St. John's River.
So you sail on the St. John's? That's a beautiful watch.
Yeah, so this one has a regatta timer, which is quite unusual. It actually has a countdown timer that'll go up to 10 minutes. So when racing, they have a countdown for this for the start before everyone can pass the start line.
What boats do you sail?
We used to race on a Lindenberg 28.
Okay.
And right now I have a 123.5, a little day sailor.
Okay.
Yeah, just for cruising. So I'm not using this on my current boat, but yeah, we used to race out on the river.
That's great. That's great. So let's start with this one. This is a Oyster Perpetual date, and it says superlative chronometer. This was my grandfather. I was born in Scotland, and my grandfather comes to visit at some point after I'm born, and he goes home with 3 Rolexes, and this is one of them. One for himself.
He bought them here in America?
He bought them. I kind of think that while he was visiting in Scotland, that he toured around Europe a little bit. My grandfather was pretty wealthy, and I think he bought it in Switzerland, actually. Here, take a look at it. Tell me what you can tell me about that watch. I believe that's as old as me.
It seems to have the original bracelet on it still, which is pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely original. The only thing was it was my dad. My dad's wrists were a little bigger than mine, so I took out one of the links when I got it.
Yeah, these old bracelets were called rivet bracelets because of all the rivets that hold it together on the end.
Huh.
Quite cool.
And then you were talking.
Yeah, the blue hand, the blue second hand.
Yeah, the blue second hand really. I think that's one of the things I was really liking about it.
Yeah, what a beautiful piece. People love the vintage pieces because there's textures on the dials, textures on the hands that just aren't there today. You know, Rolex is constantly changing dials and the way in which the dials are made, or the textures on top of them. So, you know, if you look closely at this dial, even it has almost like a paper kind of texture to it, which is, you know, unique. They don't make them like that today. So people just love looking over the vintage pieces. They love even the text, the typography on them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And
well, as I said, there were 3 of these. So one was my grandfather's and it got stolen. One was my dad's and now it's mine. And the third went to an uncle. And the uncle sent it to one of those places in Texas about 25 years ago. And, you know, sold it. You know, put it in an envelope, and the guy gave him, I think he said $100 for it. Yeah, I yelled at him. It's one of the few times I've yelled at my uncle. I said I would have given you a lot more for that. Wow. And partially it was a sentimental because I knew that they were bought when I was born.
Sure.
And then this one is newer. This was the late 90s. But you said you liked this one. What is it you liked about that one?
Well, this is a Datejust with a smooth bezel. You know, a lot of the Datejusts that we see will be fluted.
Oh, yeah, I've seen the fluted.
And they're two-tone, or, you know, steel and gold, as they call it. And those are very common. The steel and gold Datejust with the Jubilee bracelets.
Right, I know those ones.
A bracelet like this one here. You know, so these are very common watches. I probably have 6 of them up here. But this, you don't see too many all stainless steel Datejust with a smooth bezel. So I love when I see one that is a little unique, you know. You don't see it every day.
Well, I didn't realize how different they all were until you sort of showed me some of these websites, and I started looking at the ads, and I was like, wow. And I then was trying to find one like this, and I found some that were similar, but I never found one in any website that was exactly like that. This one I didn't look for as much, but I know what you're talking about because I did notice the fluting on that's around. Fluting goes around in here.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So something like this here, you know, a little more flashy, I'd say. You know, a lot of the customers like them because they're beautiful. And
that's why you should buy it, because you like it.
that's what I always recommend. You know, don't buy one because you think, oh, someone on the internet says it's cool, or because my buddy likes it, or you read an article. I think you should buy it because you love that watch and you're looking forward to wearing it.
And then you showed me some of these websites and they're fascinating. And then they had some watches for sale, and I was looking at one and I was like, oh, I really like that. And I was thinking, but you say never buy them on the internet, always buy them from a reputable dealer like Underwood's. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I think, you know, there's a big concern out there that you can get taken advantage of. Unfortunately, because there's so much money involved with the watches, there'll be a lot of unscrupulous people that will modify the watches, meaning they change parts on them. For instance, we see a lot that are sold with aftermarket diamond dials and diamond bezels, and the customer doesn't realize that stuff's not genuine. And the non-genuine nature is going to potentially damage the integrity of the watch because it can't keep moisture out.
Okay.
And so as an authorized dealer, we're not permitted to work on watches that have any aftermarket parts on them. Again, because of the integrity of the watch. So there are situations where we will come and be able to replace those non-genuine parts. But anyways, for the most part, it's a concern that if you don't really know what you're doing, you could get a watch that has been modified or has non-genuine parts on it. And you paid an extra amount of dollars because you thought that's what it was, when in reality, it's worth much less.
Well, that's kind of interesting. You know, when I worked in Manhattan on Wall Street in the 1980s, and they used to sell the fake Rolexes like for a while on every corner, you know, and they looked a lot. I mean, you looked at them. I mean, you could kind of tell that they weren't real if you looked at them closely, but they looked kind of like Rolexes. Mm-hmm. And I think they were selling for like $20, $25 and all over the place. So there are fakes out there.
Oh yes, absolutely. And lots of quality of fakes. There's ones that are really fake and cheap and anyone could tell. And then there's some that are so nicely made, you'd have to open up the inside and really look at it to see if it's a genuine watch or not. It's amazing, the quality of some of these fakes.
So advice would be come to you guys.
Yeah, I would go to an official Rolex jeweler. That way, you know you're paying retail. We're not allowed to sell them for any more than what Rolex stipulates. So you know you're getting a fair deal on the watch,
and you know you're getting a real watch. You're
getting a genuine product.
Because there's a lot of fake stuff on the internet.
There is, yeah.
I mean, one could argue that the internet is mostly fake stuff, right?
Perhaps, yeah.
I mean, isn't in most of what you not just Rolexes and not just stuff for sale, but isn't a lot of stuff on the internet fake?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a big risk of getting a non-genuine item, and you know, I think what bothers me is, you know, these people spend so much money. We work so hard for our money, and to be taken advantage of like that is just a shame.
Oh yeah, I think there's a lot of scammers out there.
But I don't mean to say that everyone out there is not legit. I think that there are a lot of legit resellers out there on the internet, but you just need to be careful. I think you never can be too sure, and especially when it comes to these online forums and stuff like Facebook that you're talking about. There's a concern that those people are there to take advantage of you. You know.
Well, that one group that you connected me to, I mean, I get like messages, new message like every few minutes. It seems like. I mean, they loading up my Facebook. In fact, once I'm done with this, I'm probably going to take it off because I get so many alerts from people trying to sell watches. And unlike you, I don't know what's the retail price. I just see the prices and I go, oh my goodness, that's in some cases, wow, that seems like a lot of money.
Yeah, so that's the secondary market there that you're talking about. Those are the flippers there for the most part. And they're not all flippers. Some people are watch enthusiasts that have been there for a decade. But these days, on those forums, and you have a lot of people, they'll buy them here at Underwood's or somewhere, and they'll try and sell it for a huge markup the next day.
And we're talking about the flippers. One of the things that's intrigued me was that, and the hoarders and the speculators, there's more in Rolex than any other kind of watch. Is that fair?
More as in
like other luxury watches. I don't want to mention any brands.
Yeah, there's a, when it comes to the luxury Swiss brands, Rolex makes, more than most brands. A lot of these other brands make very few.
Okay.
And Rolex has the biggest name. Rolex has brand recognition all over the world. People love it just like they love the dollar bill.
Like the dollar bill.
Yeah.
Some might argue they're better than the dollar bill.
I would argue that, yeah.
The Swiss. I got my mentor, my investment mentor, is a big fan of Switzerland, and he'd probably tell you Swiss franc is a better
Is that
currency.
right?
I don't know. He's always he comes to me with Swiss ideas. So it's been really, really fun. I've enjoyed meeting you now. This is the third time, and it's been everyone. These times have been great. Anything you want to share with us that I?
No, thanks for your time. I hope that if you have a watch out there and it needs service, come bring it by, and we'll be glad to take care of you guys.
Oh, I would not trust my Rolexes with anyone but you.
Appreciate that. Yeah.
You're the man as far as I'm
it's in
concerned.
good hands here.
Oh, you're the man. Watchmaker Michael Dudley. Thanks everybody. Hope you enjoyed the show about Rolexes and learned a little bit about what makes this watch right here so iconic.